the neighbor who was watching her. It was 2:17 in the morning when the scream shattered the silence. A woman's voice echoed through the quiet apartment building, desperate and terrified. Then suddenly, everything went silent. No one in the building knew it yet, but that single scream would lead to a chilling discovery that would haunt the entire neighborhood for years. Because the person responsible wasn't a stranger. He was someone who had been living only a few floors away. This is the disturbing true crime story of Emily Carter and the neighbor who had been secretly watching her. Emily Carter was 24 years old when she moved into the small apartment building on the edge of town. Friends described her as energetic, kind, and determined to build a new life. She had recently started a new job and was excited about finally having her own place. The building itself was quiet and ordinary, a simple 3-story complex with about 20 apartments, the type of place where neighbors occasionally passed each other in the hallway, but mostly kept to themselves. Emily moved in during the fall. She decorated her apartment with plants, photos of family, and a small desk where she planned to work on her goals. To her, the apartment represented freedom and independence. But unknown to Emily, someone in that building had already started noticing her, watching her, studying her routines, and over time, that attention would grow into something far darker. Several residents later told police they had seen a man lingering in the hallways more often than usual. His name was Daniel Harper. He lived on the second floor, 2 levels above Emily. Most neighbors barely knew him. He was quiet, rarely spoke, and mostly kept to himself. But investigators would later discover that Daniel had developed a disturbing obsession. According to evidence later found on his computer, he had been watching Emily for weeks. He knew when she left for work. He knew when she returned home. And he knew exactly which apartment she lived in. Emily had no idea. To her, Daniel Harper was just another stranger in the building, another face she might pass once or twice in the hallway. But to Daniel, Emily had become the center of his attention. On the night of October 14th, everything seemed completely normal. Emily had spent the evening at home watching television. She texted a friend around midnight saying she was tired and planning to go to sleep. That message would be the last time anyone heard from her. Sometime after 2 in the morning, a neighbor living next door woke up suddenly. At first, he thought he had been dreaming. Then he heard it again. A woman screaming. The sound came from Emily's apartment. It was loud, desperate, and filled with panic. The neighbor later told police the scream lasted only a few seconds. Then it stopped. The building returned to complete silence. At the time, the neighbor assumed it might have been an argument or some kind of nightmare. He didn't call the police. That decision would later haunt him, because at that exact moment, Emily Carter was fighting for her life. The next morning, Emily didn't show up for work. Her coworkers tried calling her phone several times, but it went straight to voicemail. At first, they assumed she might have overslept or taken a day off. But as the hours passed, concern started to grow. Emily was known for being responsible and punctual. Missing work without telling anyone was completely unlike her. By that evening, Emily's family began trying to contact her as well. When no one could reach her, they made the difficult decision to call the police. Officers arrived at the apartment complex later that night. At first glance, nothing about the building seemed unusual. But when they reached Emily's apartment door, something caught their attention. The door was slightly open, just a few inches, as if someone had left in a hurry. Police slowly pushed the door open and entered the apartment. Inside, everything looked mostly normal. The living room lights were off. The television was silent. Her belongings were still inside, but Emily was nowhere to be found. Detectives began carefully examining the apartment. There were no clear signs of forced entry, no broken locks, no smashed windows, but as they searched further, they noticed something unusual in the kitchen. A glass lay shattered on the floor. Nearby, investigators discovered something far more disturbing: a single bloody fingerprint on the wall. It was small, but clearly visible. Someone had been injured inside the apartment. And whatever had happened, it had happened quickly. Police immediately treated the case as a possible abduction. Investigators began interviewing neighbors in the building. That's when one resident mentioned hearing a scream at around 2 in the morning. Another neighbor reported seeing a man wearing a dark hoodie entering the building late that night. Security cameras at the front entrance confirmed it. At exactly 2:12 a.m., a man wearing a hoodie walked into the apartment complex. The footage was grainy, but detectives could see his height and general build. But something about the footage puzzled investigators. There was no video showing the man leaving the building. He entered, but never came out, which meant one thing: the person responsible might still be living inside the building. Police began checking the identities of every resident. They compared fingerprints from the apartment to those on file in local records. Then a match appeared. The fingerprint belonged to a man named Daniel Harper, the same quiet neighbor who lived 2 floors above Emily. When investigators knocked on Daniel's door, he seemed calm. Too calm. He claimed he had been home all night. But detectives quickly noticed inconsistencies in his story. When confronted with the fingerprint evidence, Daniel became visibly nervous. Then investigators showed him the security footage. After hours of questioning, Daniel finally broke. He confessed. Daniel told police he had been watching Emily for weeks. He knew her routine. He knew when she was home, alone. That night, he decided to approach her apartment. At first, he claimed he only wanted to talk to her. But when Emily tried to force him to leave, the situation turned violent. Emily screamed for help. The struggle lasted only minutes. But by the time it ended, Emily was unconscious. Daniel panicked. Fearing he would be caught, he carried Emily out of the apartment building through a back exit not covered by cameras. He drove to a nearby wooded area and left her there. 3 days later, police discovered Emily's body during a search of the area. The entire community was shocked. For weeks, residents had unknowingly been living near a man capable of such violence. During the trial, prosecutors revealed the disturbing details of Daniel's obsession. Investigators found files on his computer containing photos of Emily taken secretly from outside the building. He had been tracking her movements for weeks, watching her come and go, planning his approach. The jury found Daniel Harper guilty. He was sentenced to life in prison. Today, Emily Carter's story remains a tragic reminder of how quickly ordinary life can turn into something unimaginable. A quiet apartment building, a normal evening at home, a single scream in the middle of the night, and a neighbor who had been hiding a dangerous obsession. Sometimes The most terrifying criminals aren't strangers lurking in dark alleys. Sometimes they're the people living right next door. If you enjoyed this true crime story, subscribe for more real cases, mysteries, and investigations every week. Because sometimes the truth is more disturbing than fiction, and some stories deserve to be remembered.